This week on Two Mystic Mamas, we have Jenny D, a lifelong astrologer who began sharing her practice publicly in 2021 after years of offering private insights to clients from all walks of life. Through her digital platform, she provides astute commentary on the astrology of current events, practical tips for navigating transits, and approachable wisdom delivered with her very own signature style. Based in Pittsburgh, Jenny hosts the monthly meeting of Pittsburgh Astrology Group at the Crow's Nest in Dormont on the last Friday of every month from 7 to 9 p.m. She fosters community connections and advocates for preserving astrology for future generations by offering weekly, affordable one-on-one tutoring and cold consultations. To learn more, you can find her on Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok at Jenny D Astrology, JennyDee Astrology. Oh my goodness. Hi, Rach.
What's up?
It's been...
it feels like
a decade.
I know.
It's been a decade since...
I was going to say 10 light years.
Oh, no, that's how far you live from me.
That's how far you live from me.
Bullshit. Anyway.
I know. Do you know what I thought of? Because we did the mashup episode. I thought it'd be funny if when we said our Two Mystic Mamas, how we always say it together, but if I said it in a man voice or and I threw you off.
Well, now it's not going to throw me off because you told me about it.
I know. Well, I'm not really good at keeping secrets.
We do have a very special episode today for you guys. We have someone with us. We have a guest for our first episode of 2025.
We have an amazing, incredible astrologer with us.
We do.
So, welcome.
Welcome.
To Two Mystic Mamas. We are back at it.
Yes.
It really does feel like we haven't connected. We have so much to catch up on, so much to bring to light.
That's right. We actually are going to talk a little bit about our astrological forecast this year, a little bit about Aquarius season, the trajectory of the podcast.
Yes, we're
all
just
the things.
We maybe the middle of the year last year when we really started to get the podcast off the ground, and we, always envisioned having guests on because, the community is super important to us. And Krystyn and I wouldn't be who we are. We wouldn't be able to live out this dream if it wasn't for our community, for others, for our friends, for our family, and also just reaching out to new people in our community. And so at the end of last year, we had on the incredible Naisha. And if you haven't listened to that episode, go check it out. It's all about healing from a holistic standpoint. And what does that look like? Spiritual healing. And how can you incorporate that? And through Naisha, we reached out and asked her who would be somebody that we should get in touch with from an astrology standpoint, because we started really getting into that at the end of last year, looking at sun, moon, and rising. What is that? And it's a huge, huge amount of information and, tip of the iceberg kind of thing. So Krystyn and I, we reached out to Jenny D, who is with us today. Welcome, Jenny.
Welcome.
Hi. So nice to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, of course. And so Jenny D is a Yinzer with us, a lover of the Steelers.
Yinzer first, Steelers, they'll be all right.
They'll be okay.
They'll be okay.
They'll be okay.
Tell me, how are they going to be okay? The last game, I couldn't even watch this past game. I just was so annoyed. I want to really like Russell. I think he's a good man.
I think Russell...
What a man.
I think he is. I actually did a profile of him on my website, and I think he gets the shaft a lot for his cheesiness, because all of that I genuinely believe is sincere.
Yeah, no, I think he's
100%. I dig him.
Yeah. I've never seen a quarterback throw the ball away as much as he has.
Did you see Kenny Pickett?
Well,
listen, I don't think we can throw any shade on any of them. They're out there working hard. It's really hard to make millions of dollars, you guys.
I just hope both teams have fun. I'm a mom, so I just hope you guys do.
Go sports.
Yeah.
Guys,
No.
guys, love you both. I do. But no, this is a job. This is no longer like a recreational sport. Like they are getting paid to perform.
No. Oh, trust me. Our family is fully invested.
Yeah, of course you are. But I do want to talk about the Steelers a little bit because that's like kind of part of your personality or persona online is the love of
Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I'm a Yinzer first.
Yes.
For sure. Fries on everything.
Yes.
Or else put it on a pizza, put it on the mic.
Put it on the mic.
But are you a fries and ranch kind of girl?
I can easily be talked into it.
Okay, yeah.
Now, were you born in Pittsburgh and like grew up here?
I was not. I was born in Athens, Ohio. So OU.
Oh my God. You didn't listen to that episode.
I didn't get there yet.
Our first guest, Art Ostrike, the owner of Jack Yo's Brewing.
Oh, I don't.
What was it before? It was like a bagel shop.
Go back and listen.
I will.
Yeah. That was a good episode too. He's incredible. He has an incredible story.
Cool.
He really does.
Yeah. But I only spent a couple years there and then moved here. So I'm not born and raised here, but I'm Yinzer through and through.
That's okay.
Gotcha.
I don't think you have to be born and raised in Pittsburgh to be a Yinzer.
Mm-mm.
I would not consider myself a Yinzer, but I am a Pittsburgher.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I was, I moved here, when I was a little bit older.
Oh,
so.
yeah.
I think there's like a persona that goes along with being a true Yinzer.
Yeah.
I can act like a Yinzer. I can pull the dialect from time to time, but I would agree that I'm a Pittsburgher. I am not.
Oh, no.
I don't.
I'm Yinzer first, babe.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But do you love the Pittsburgh dad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
He's pretty great.
There's also another guy on TikTok. I don't know his name. He's the like Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh my God.
Pittsburgh guy.
Yes. I saw him where he goes in his back. Oh.
Right. Well, I met him.
You did?
Well, yeah, he came up to talk to Charlie at the one Steelers game. And Evie and I were there at the, out there watching.
Yes.
And so there is a picture of Charlie and Evie and him.
He's fucking hilarious.
Somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many of those guys. It's really funny now because like Charlie's gotten to know a lot of them.
Yeah.
So there's like Steelers Jesus and the Pope. And Charlie had put in like a birthday message up on Facebook for Evie recently. And he doesn't go. Like he doesn't have social media on his phone. So he had like gone on his computer and done it. And then he hadn't gone back. And I got tagged in something that sent me there. And I looked and Steeler Jesus had put a birthday message up for Evie.
Oh, I love that.
It's so funny because I told her about it and she was like, "You mean the one that blessed us when we was crossing the road?" I was like, "Yeah, that's the one, babe."
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many like personalities.
There is, yeah.
For you to capture and talk about, like to get back to what you do. There are a million Steelers, Pittsburgh personalities out there that are just like doing their thing.
Yeah. It makes me think of Penguins knitting lady too.
Oh, I don't know of the Penguins knitting lady.
She was a season ticket holder. And
she crocheted at the games?
She would bring her stuff and sit there and because she was so nervous. And she would just sit there and knit. And so, yeah, it's really fun to see what fan base does with what.
Yes.
And what was it? The Kansas City, there was a guy that like robbed a bank or something or like cheated people out of a whole bunch of money. Like I remember seeing, it wasn't a 30 for 30, but there was like this wild story about how this dude was like conning people out of tickets and money or something.
From Kansas City?
Yeah, he was a Kansas City fan.
Oh, okay.
And he was like super well known Kansas City fan and then just kind of went off the deep end.
I didn't hear about that, but I feel like that's bad karma. That might come back to bite them. You know what's also interesting? It's kind of like the terrible towel, Myron Cope's terrible towel. Mm-hmm. Don't fuck with the towel.
You don't.
I don't know why this is still a thing. Every time that another opposing team impersonates the towel, or stomps on the towel,
don't desecrate the towel.
Do not do that.
Respect the towel.
It has an energy of its own. Myron Cope, though he had the most annoying voice in the world, was an icon.
Man, he will haunt some motherfuckers.
He will, motherfucker.
He'll come after you.
And it's such a cool story too. The history behind how the towel became the terrible towel.
Yeah.
Also, if you don't know, you should look it up. And there's a couple documentaries on it. But it has such a beautiful history behind it because it was created to be a fundraiser for children and I think adults too that have Down syndrome.
Yeah.
And it has all of the money and the proceeds went to fund, I think it's in Swickley actually, a facility. Now I'm, don't quote me on all this, but the gist of it is it was created on a whim to be a fundraiser and it took off like wildfire and it has become a staple for any Steeler fan and you just don't fuck with it.
Right.
Don't do it.
I actually think it was his son that inspired that because his
Did he
son
have Downs?
had,
Okay.
That's what I think.
That is such a cool story. I didn't know that.
It's kind of like Biddy and Bose. Biddy and Bose is in the Strip District. I'm pointing for listeners. I'm pointing to a sticker on my Stanley that was created in one of the Carolinas, and it's now a franchise. I don't know if it's a franchise, but basically they've created new locations. But all of the people that work there have either Downs or some type of disability that they were struggling to get hired, right? So you have these young adults. Yes, they have a learning disability, a physical disability, but they're viable. Like let's go. Like, come on, justice, right? Like, how do we figure that out? And so Biddy and Bose was created, and it's awesome. It's in the Strip District.
I'll have to check it out.
Their coffee is actually amazing. Anyways, back to
astrology.
Back to Jenny D. Let's get back to it. This is what happens.
So, for the bitches in the back.
Pay attention.
Raise up.
Do you want to tell us what astrology is and how you view astrology and what got you into it?
Yeah. The first question is common. What is astrology? And the way that I like to talk about astrology is that astrology is really a archetypal study of celestial events and how they correlate to things that happen here on Earth. It's a study of history and a study of celestial history at the same time.
So we're talking planets, we're talking stars.
Talking planets, stars, fixed stars, points, comets, asteroids, you name it. Every astrologer kind of has their own practice and what they look at, as opposed to having everything be completely logical and completely mathematical. There are certain things that I'll look at that Joanne, astrologer herself, is not going to look at, but and vice versa. And that's just because different things speak to different people.
Well, and there's so much. There's so many celestial bodies that you could research. I mean, we know there's no end.
Literally.
That's part of the reason why I picked it up as like a serious hobby and now a career, because it was something for me that I noticed right away. I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to know everything about this. So let's just accept that I will never be as knowledgeable as the next person and then just see what I can do with it.
I think that's so cool, though, to be like a lifelong learner and to study something that, yes, you can be an expert, but you're still a student at the same time.
Well, I think that lends itself to astrology, too, because people get wrapped into thinking that life is a certain way, when really it's just that life can happen a certain way during a specific period of time because of A, actions, B, how the planets are aligned, how the celestial bodies are aligned, and they're not going to stay in the same place, which means you're not going to be the same person. You're not going to be interacting with the world around you in the same way that you were 7 years ago.
Exactly. I wouldn't want to be the person I was 7 years ago.
Oh, God, no.
No.
Like, she was fine and everything, but I'm much better now.
Well, that's just it, right? I was just going to say something similar. Like, I mean, she'd be cool. Like, I loved her then, but I'm loving me in a new way. And yes, I don't know. You don't regress.
Right.
Well, sometimes people do. But I remember, like, when we started this podcast and I had left my job, I was like, I am now a new version of, and I was having this spiritual enlightenment. I am a different Rachel than I was yesterday. So I can't go back, right? So how do I morph into what is to be? And that's, following your authentic self and just, heeding
you have to integrate it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think with astrology, you are able to accept certain things about your life, your history, where your future could go, where you might be taking it, that you absolutely should not take it. And having that perspective really opens a lot of stuff up.
Oh, yeah.
For
it's
someone.
a guide. Yeah.
It's a guide. It offers a roadmap, but at the same time, you're the one that has to decide to turn left or right.
Correct. You're still the one who has to do the work.
Right.
Yes.
Each chart has a really great natal promise. It's just a matter of whether or not the native wants to actualize the promise.
Okay, so let's break that up.
Okay.
You use some words in there that I'm like,
oh yeah, sorry.
No, it's cool. It's cool, but
I'm here for it.
Yeah. I'm like, yes, what?
Sorry, that's me. I
think it's great. But one of the things that, we want to make sure, well, selfishly, I want to make sure is I understand what you're saying. Because I'm also a student here.
Well,
so.
and there's a lot of people that might be listening to this podcast that are just on their kind of spiritual awakening and they're just hearing about astrology and even understanding that it's something beyond that monthly horoscope that they saw in the back of Cosmo when they were a teenager, right?
Yes.
Sure, yeah.
We're showing our age, Krystyn.
All right, so how did you get into astrology?
Yes, back to you, Jenny D. Let's just go back.
It's funny. I don't really know. I remember being in like Revco with my mom when I was little, and we were at the checkout line.
What's Revco?
I know. What is Revco?
Oh, and you guys say you're from Pittsburgh.
I didn't say that at all.
I also did not say I was from Pittsburgh. I just say I'm a Pittsburgher.
Revco was Rite Aid, but like Revco.
Interesting. Did Rite Aid buy them?
Probably.
Okay,
It was a long time ago.
As soon as you said that too, I was like, oh, I hope Krystyn doesn't know what Revco is. I don't know what that is. But I grew up out near Gettysburg.
Sure.
Not that it matters, and we're going to get right back to you, but like,
Sure we are.
I have family here, so I sometimes feel like I can relate to some of the things. But every time we would come to Pittsburgh, we would be in the South Hills, but at like my aunt's house or something. So we weren't doing, like we went to Station Square once or twice. And I had been to Three Rivers before that got torn. And I was at, why is it escaping me? Mellon Arena. Before that got
Civic Arena.
Civic Arena. Okay, so back to you. You don't know how you got started, but here we are.
Yeah, so I didn't know anything about astrology, but I remember being at the store with my mom, and they had all the little almanacs lined up for every sign. I had asked her, what is this? I was probably 8 at the time, 7 or 8. And she said, oh, that's astrology. Explained it to me real quick. And that's how I found out that I was a Pisces sun. And ever since then, it just kind of caught my attention and I wanted to know everything about it. So being a little kid, I would be a little kid about it and find out, different things. As I moved into my mid-teenage years and around 16, I started getting tarot decks and looking a little bit deeper into it and all that stuff. And then after that, I just kind of started devouring information as much as I could. And now I am the monster before you today.
She's a magical astrology monster, you guys.
Yeah.
We love her.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been fantastic. This particular episode has been rescheduled more than twice, less than 5 times. And I don't want to say it was because of nothing. It had everything to do with the universe, right? Like, I remember when we met, like our first virtual Zoom meeting, and we were trying to come up with a time, and you had a very specific date and time, and both Chris and I were like, "That's not going to work." But why? And you had said about that it was just based on some things. This would have made a lot of sense to record, and we were like, "Okay, cool."
But we're not going to do that.
Yes. And then we had to, it just transpired because, there's been a lot of crazy energy at the end of 2024. And, Krystyn got hit by a freight train more than once.
Named pneumonia.
Yeah. Well, it started out as bronchitis.
Right.
Then you added another car to it and got the pneumonia hit.
The pneumonia freight train just took me right through December. I started feeling unwell, just like sniffles the first week of December. And then I think the 7th of December, I actually was coughing up blood. And that is what took me to the
New information for Rachel.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah.
Good call
The
to
Med Express.
go see someone if you're coughing up blood.
Yep. So that's
Good
TMI,
medical
but
advice.
Yeah.
You always got to take it to the extreme, don't you?
I went from sniffles to that. Like there was no in between at all.
That's weird.
Not even like a cold, just a couple sniffles. Like I was like, oh, it could have just been allergies. It was so wild.
It could have been allergies,
And then,
but it was pneumonia.
but it was, I'm like, hey, I have some allergies or pneumonia.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph.
But you guys,
Terrible.
I'm better.
I know,
here.
and that's
thank
wonderful.
God. Yes, yeah.
You know, when I kind of had my first round of like really feeling terrible and was coming out of that, and Rachel and I were talking about it, and she's like, there's always a reason, right? Like there's something that is causing this.
Is forcing you to rest.
Well, but it was more than that. And I felt this like from the very beginning, that there was something that my body needed to purge physically in order for me to move to the next step and kind of level up to where I'm going. Because the number 40, I turned 44 this year.
Samesies.
Yay! The number 44 as a year, like as an age, has always stood out to me. And I've never understood why, but it's always been like something is going to happen when I turn 44. I don't know what, but something's going to happen. Something good. Your big eyes
I'm
were
like, fucking start talking right now.
No, something good. And astrologically speaking, as a Gemini sun, like this is a big year for me. There's a lot of big transits. I mean, for everyone, there's a lot of big transits this year, but this is a like shit is happening for you kind of year for my Gemini suns out there. And I just have felt like there is stuff that has to go. Has to go before I can move into that next phase. And a lot of times for me, that manifests physically. And boy, did it.
And I've said this.
I love all this for you.
I think we should just transition right into what Jenny has not predicted, but predicted. I don't know what other word I should use instead of predicted. Forecasted. Okay, forecasted. But before we do that, I just want to say that this whole time that you have been down and out and we haven't communicated because obviously you needed that rest. Two things. One, I have not felt like the urge to like, not poke the bear, but like I knew that I also just needed to give you rest because you're the type of person that you like lists and you like checking things off and you like to do work and I love you so much, but suck at resting.
I know.
You've gotten really good at self-care and like honoring yourself in that way, but rest for some reason in your brain equals non-productiveness.
Right.
And so you had been struggling with that all year. And I just was like, okay, like the universe kept giving you signs and you were like, cuckoo, I'm just going to keep doing me. And then it was like, it had to get to that point. So I knew you were safe this whole time. Like I remember calling Charles the one time because I didn't want to call you, and Jeff and I were just like, how is Krystyn? What's going on? This was right around
so sweet.
The time that we were on the way to the hospital to see Jeff's dad after.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, Charles is he's such a good husband, but he's such a good person. And just the way he was talking about, you know, how he had to kind of force you to go too, but how he was taking care of you and how you were taking care of yourself. And I think it was probably a great time for you guys too, to just, you know, like, because when you're that sick, like you have to rely on others to help you.
You do. And I did have to rely on my family, and my family doesn't handle seeing me down.
No, well, because it's not common.
Right. It's not common.
But I think it's a part of life, and it's that balance, right? You were talking about that balance. So I'm so glad you're on the up and up. And I think let's get into the forecast for Krystyn.
Oh boy.
I cannot wait.
I just think that just listening to what you were saying right now, I know from personal experience that if you don't time out, the universe will time you out.
Right.
And hopefully this was a learning moment for you yeah, you know, sometimes we'd have to chill for a bit.
Well, and I think it's just weird how you said it went from sniffles to basically fucking pneumonia. Like, that's just weird. That
almost instantly.
Yeah.
And we've definitely had this conversation before. This is a recurring theme that happens. I mean, we've both had this happen to us. where the universe will sideline us because we're not paying attention to the signs. And each time there is a different lesson learned.
Yep. I'm just thinking about myself, not you.
No, I know.
But I was like, that's spot on. Spot on.
Right.
Krystyn.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is. But 2025 is going to be fucking...
And it feels good. Like,
it is going to be
feels
fucking
good.
Yeah.
I love that attitude. I really do. Because the biggest theme, I think, for 2025 altogether is change. And if you are not good at change, you better get good at change, because change is coming in every aspect, in every possible place in your life. Things that you take for granted are going to be flipped over, and you're going to have to start thinking creatively. And if you are not down with radical acceptance, then there is going to be a lot of problems. And if you dig in and start getting stubborn and you don't want to admit that, well, maybe this is an area where I can improve, or a move has to be made and I'm not feeling confident enough to make that move, well, you better get confident. You better get there, because it's coming one way or the other.
Yes.
And a lot of times you'll hear astrologers speak in very threatening type terms when we're talking about global things. And I want to emphasize that global events, while they absolutely impact us, they do not necessarily impact our day-to-day lives. So things will manifest in different ways for everyday people than they will for global leaders.
Yeah. I think that's such an important thing to touch on when we're talking about astrology in general, is that, you know, while there may be a transit that seems terrifying or negative, it's really about harnessing the power of what's happening and how you can use that power in your everyday life to kind of be a directive for you.
Correct.
That's, I think, the takeaway here. So in anything that you guys hear today, I would just implore you to dig in a little. How does this affect me on a daily level, weekly, annually, whatever?
I think that's really important because, recently my mentor, Chris Brennan, talked about a concept known as time twins. And if you're talking about time twins, it's people who were born very close together, like within a few days of each other. And the concept of that is well, how are their lives similar? How do things end up working similarly between their two journeys? And the episode that he is going to be offering us is between Adolf Hitler and Charlie Chaplin, because they were born, I think, within 4 days of each other.
Yes.
And you would not think that things would be similar there. But the way that he and Nick Dagan Bess break it down, you're like, I get it. Because, not everyone is going to take a particular aspect of their personality or their life and go 50 yards with it. They're going to say, that's maybe not for me. And I'm not going to be awful. I'm not going to be a terrible human being. I'd rather be entertaining. So I'm going to do this instead.
Have we talked about the fact that I've had multiple psychics and mediums talk about Charlie Chaplin being a spirit guide for me?
We have not.
How interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Charlie Chaplin, I think.
And there's some weirdness there too.
Oh, well, yeah. Because I know a little bit about his history, right? Because, he was a silent entertainer. But he was...
like us.
Silent. Just like you.
Just like you, Krystyn, the silence.
I know, I'm so silent.
You and your meme. The mime. Mime? Jesus. I was like a meme. They didn't have memes back then.
That's me, Pantomime Podcast.
Pantomime. But he had some, wasn't he kind of fucked up?
I feel like we have talked about this because I think you're the one that told me that didn't he marry a child, essentially? Hold on.
No, it was not me because I don't know a ton of history, but I know that I think he was very, very ultra controlling. And I think he ruled a house, his house was very regimented.
Militant,
yeah.
I couldn't say one way or the other, but I think that if the idea of time twins is something that interests you, then this is definitely a time to just, get on the old search engine machine and say, oh, what celebrities were born around this particular date, your birthday, and then go through and see what kind of similarities. Because I actually did that last night, and there were a handful of athletes, celebrities, just notable figures that I was like, I can definitely see how certain themes are reoccurring here. Yeah. And that's like a regular common question that we get with astrology is that, well, if you're twins and you're born 1 minute apart, how can things end up so differently for you guys? Well, because there's choice involved. There's a heavy difference between fate and destiny. Fate is absolutely how the cards are dealt to you, but your destiny is what you choose to do with them and how you play those cards.
Sure.
And if, you got a full house and you decide to fold, well, yeah, you're going to stay home and you're not going to do anything with it.
Right.
But if you got 4 aces and you decide to play them, I mean, that can be a ballsy move sometimes.
Now, when you're talking about time twins and you're talking about researching people that are kind of within those couple of days of your birthday, are you looking at the same year that you were born? Okay.
Yeah.
Just so people are
Yes.
there.
So it's not within the same, just the birthday. You want year, everything. You want within, I would say within 4 or 5 days.
See, we've talked about this on a previous podcast. Actually, twice we've talked about this. One time, we talked about this in your Scorpio birthday episode, but I think there was another time before that where we kind of went back and forth on, I wonder what it would be like to meet someone who was born at the exact same time as me.
Yeah.
Like, what would they be like?
Not so much the location, but the same
time.
The date and the year.
Well, the location is really important too.
It is.
Yeah.
Right. That would also be interesting.
Because you could, if you're a Libra rising at one place in the world, you could be a Gemini rising somewhere else.
Right. Yeah.
So, and that makes a big difference.
Yes. So who did you find?
There was I think there was a soccer player and a tennis player, things that I have not been able to go in and fully research just yet.
Yeah.
But I was like, there's enough there that I'm getting ready to, a lot of film history.
This was for yourself?
Yes.
Yeah.
This part I can share because this part I know off the top of my head, but Ron Howard and I actually share the same birthday. We're both March 1st babies. His daughter was born within a week of me. And I'm obviously not Ron Howard's daughter or, anyone connected. I mean, I don't know if that came across.
You could. I mean, you kind of look like Ron Howard, though.
Thanks.
In a female version, But
anyway, so
she also thinks that Alex Trebek sounds like Sean Connery.
No,
it looks like Sean Connery, so don't listen to her. Yeah.
I don't think it's Graham that needs to find his glasses.
I know.
Oh, God.
Graham lost his glasses in the snow, people. My 9-year-old went out in the snow yesterday with his glasses and put them in his coat pocket, thinking, that's a brilliant idea. And, well, now they're somewhere out in the fucking yard. I'm not pissed. I'm just disappointed.
Oh, ouch.
He just got them.
Even worse.
Oh, no.
He just got them 3 weeks ago. Anyways,
he'll get them back.
Moving on.
So it's a boomerang. It'll come back.
Yeah.
What were we talking about? Time twins.
Yep. And Ron Howard's daughter.
Oh, and Ron Howard. Oh, that's
you're Ron Howard's daughter.
I'm so totally Ron Howard's daughter.
Jenny Howard is with us.
There's a heavy theme of film and being exposed to Hollywood film, understanding the industry and her life early on. For me, I didn't have that. But when I was a kid, I was obsessed with movies, I was the kid that could tell you what production company released what movie, what year it was, and all of that. Very, very heavily interested in the business and how the back things of Hollywood operated. And I was like, there's something there. There's
fascinating.
Yeah, there's something to build on there.
Yeah.
So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
You would be great to have on a trivia team. Krystyn, not so much. Krystyn and cinema, they don't go together. They just don't.
Are you sure you don't want to test my Winnie the Pooh?
No, there's so many that we can't
knowledge
test.
Share.
You got Christmas with the Cranks under your belt, but that's about it.
Listen, I have a couple that I know.
It's true. There's just 2.
It's just
I'll give you that, Krystyn.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Super good at movies.
All right. I feel like we need to get into some meat and potatoes of 2025.
Ask me anything. do we want to jump into the forecast? Do we want to talk about the charts?
Can we kind of talk about the forecast for
Yeah,
people? And
let's
then
do that.
kind of integrate how that looks for each of our charts and the trajectory of the podcast while we're kind of do like an incorporative. And we would like to do an interpretive dance with you, please.
That's great. I love that. Okay, so when we're talking about the astrological forecast for 2025, we actually need to start at the end of 2024. So November 19th, 2024, Pluto made its last ingress into Aquarius.
Yes.
This was a huge deal for many, many people, myself included. I'm really excited to have Pluto out of my 4th house and going into my 5th house. When we are looking at Pluto's movements, Pluto is kind of like one of those planets that everyone gets scared of because Pluto can be super sneaky.
Mm-hmm.
He will jump scare you at whim, and you never know really quite when he's going to hit. And when he is interacting with Aquarius, it can really come at any time. Aquarius is a progressive type energy, a progressive type sign, and the way it offers progression or forward momentum is through conflict. So
fantastic.
Exactly. We're going to take a look at where the old ways from Capricorn are no longer working for us, and Aquarius is going to initiate a conflict so that we can be pushed into forward momentum. And the way that Pluto is going to do that is by setting it all on fire.
Yay.
So that is numero uno across the board for this year. That's the backdrop for us for the next 20 years. And when I am presenting it this way, it can sound kind of threatening, but this is not something that you need to be scared about.
Sure.
Because as we were saying earlier, change is always going to happen.
Yep.
And Pluto is just initiating this change right now, and it feels really weird because we are coming out of being, for lack of a better term, trapped by convention from Capricorn. Now, all of a sudden, we're feeling a little bit more liberated, and we can go do new stuff and feel new things in Aquarius.
Right.
And the power struggle with staying in that convention type mindset, all of a sudden we're like, oh, I got all this freedom. So sometimes, if you've ever been to college and you had your first semester at college, sometimes you overdo it a little bit.
Totally.
Yeah,
I'm tracking.
And that's kind of like where we're at right now with this. We have all of these new things that are in front of us that we can just have so much fun with, but are we allowed to?
Well, I think, too, historically speaking, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, when Pluto has entered Aquarius in the past, it's been a lot about restructuring.
Yes.
And I believe that the Declaration of Independence was actually signed towards the end of Pluto in Cap. But it wasn't until Pluto was in Aquarius that the Constitution was actually written and formed and new structures were made.
Yeah, this is our Pluto return.
Right. So I think that there's a lot that we can do with that in terms of our own lives in restructuring and listen, we've talked about this before. Some cycles have to end in order for other cycles to begin. And sometimes that looks like shit getting burned on, just getting set on fire.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the only way to get rid of it is by having a quick separation, by having something drastic happen that you are not expecting. And that's Pluto's wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So when the winter solstice happened, my question for everyone was, where in your life have you felt trapped? Where have you felt subjugated or controlled? And you have wanted to escape convention. And if you've not been able to escape that convention mindset, how do you feel now? Are you feeling a little bit more opened up? Both of you are Capricorn risings. So this suction, this stubborn, I want to go do something else, but I don't feel like I can, would have hit both of you directly. And now that Pluto has moved from your 1st house to your 2nd house, this is going to be a change of finances and a change of self-sustainability. But you both are probably feeling like, oh my God, I can breathe again. I don't feel like I've got someone's boot on my neck. I feel like I can make my own decisions and go out and have a good time and not have to worry that I'm making someone look bad or making myself look bad or that I'm not going to get a job or
For sure.
any of that.
For sure.
Like things probably feel like they're calming down a little bit.
And I feel that way. I feel like they're also ramping up. Like I feel like the energy's ramping up and I feel very empowered.
Yes.
And it's interesting because the timing of it, again, like, yes, I love a new year, but I don't love resolutions. Like I feel like just do you whenever you need to do you.
Right.
Like whenever you feel like you need to set something up for change, then do that. Naturally, marketing and what have you in our society is like New Year's resolution. It just so coincides with the fact that Pluto has made this move right now too.
Yeah.
But I am very much in that realm. And I think conflict has a negative connotation to it, the word conflict, because we associate it with war, we associate it with violence. But I feel like as women, conflict can be difficult, but it's not a negative. Like I feel like we have conflicts all the time that we work through with communication, like the power of communication and how we like can use words and gestures and that energy and not have it be a masculine thing. It's more of like a feminine. Is it a feminine year? I don't know. Is a feminine, masculine part of the years?
I don't know.
I just feel like, I don't know.
I know it's the year of the hermit because it's a 9.
And well, I was going to say, I know there are some like gender associations with numbers in numerology.
Okay,
But I'm
because I
not
know
familiar with what they are.
and 9 is also associated with endings, right?
Well, it's kind of like a culmination, right? Where like everything's kind of wrapping up. And
I know like in tarot, when I see 9s, like everything is good. We have enough. Enough is a feast and we have as much as we can eat right now, that we don't have to worry about going to the store. We don't have to worry, like we're good.
Because 999 is all about abundance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And the hermit, if you think about, I'm talking about astrology, but we're going to detour to tarot right now. The hermit is all about seeking your own information, seeking your own self, like going inward and understanding. And it just starting with Pluto and Aquarius, you're going to have to come to the fact of like, I'm either really good with change or I'm really not good with change. And if you're going to be rigid and inflexible, bro, that's not it.
So if you have a stuck mindset, this is gonna be a challenge.
Well, I think personally, like I am very good at change.
Yeah.
However, and I don't know if this is just kind of inherently like in my chart or if this is more past trauma responses, I have some wild, not quite disassociation skills, but ability to like very quickly move on in times of change. And so one of the practices that I've been working on throughout the last year is more integration of change rather than feeling like I just have to, I'm this way and now I'm this way and it's fine, right? And that's been a lot of that like somatic practice that we've talked about in the past too, is allowing this can be true, but this can also be true.
The duality.
And the duality of that and allowing both things to kind of exist within you as you're purging things at the same time.
I kind of love that for you because you were talking earlier about going into your 44th year. 44 for astrologers is a 9th house perfection year. And perfection year for astrologers is kind of like what planet is ruling you from birthday to birthday. As you go into your next year, you're going to be ruled by your Mercury that is in Cancer. And Mercury itself is very changeable, very flippant, tricky.
Yeah, it's immutable. Right?
And it changes. It can be masculine, it can be feminine, it can be night or day, depending on the sect of the chart. It can do anything. And what is it about? It's about decision making. It's about how we organize our thoughts. And if you are being too stagnant or too just stubborn in that, it's going to be tough.
Right.
And Virgo is your 9th house ruler, which is extremely flexible, kind of, and very wants to get down to the root of everything and then change it from the root.
100%.
Yeah. And as you are coming into this year and coming into the power of that Virgo 9th house perfection year, you're going to see, okay, I have identified all of these problems. How can I work with this? Not necessarily how can I fix it, because you're going to be pulled to fix it. but how are you going to be able to either deal with it or let it go?
Well, and that speaks to me because I feel like a lot of the work that I've been doing spiritually for years now is actually moving through and letting go of perfectionism. And so to come into a year that is associated with that and not feel that pull, which I don't, is really great.
Yeah.
Like it feels really good to be in a different place where I have acceptance of my power and I have stepped into it in a way that feels very giving, not just for myself, but for my community.
I love that you said that because that is so emblematic in your chart. It really is, because you're currently in an 8th house perfection year, which is ruled by Leo. Leo rules the sun, and your sun is placed in your 6th house. 6th house is where we offer service to people.
Right.
And if we are able to find fulfillment by being of service, then yeah, that will make that work a little bit more. I love that.
Yeah, that's so cool.
That is so cool.
And as you are moving from this Leo year to your Virgo year, you're going to see, especially if you are used to being more passive in your relationships, you're going to be able to see where you can stand a little bit taller, you can stand a little bit stronger. You'll be able to stand on business and say, that's great that you guys are doing that. It's not for me. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just saying I'm not going to be a part of it.
Right.
And you can have that be that. And as you progress through your life, you will be able to stand a little bit taller on this and really find your power and sink into it.
Yeah. It feels very transformative too. So Uranus is a 7-year transit, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I was thinking back. So Uranus is transiting this year in a pretty big way. And the last time this happened was like 2018. And then previous to that was like 2011.
Okay.
And those have been like crazy pivotal years for me.
Yeah.
Crazy. So I'm like, my life changed so significantly in those years that I'm like, holy crap, what is coming in the next like 1 to 2 years?
I mean, we can move on to Uranus now if you want.
All right.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So what you'll see in your particular, actually it'll be both of your charts because you both have Capricorn rising. Where you've been at right now, you've a lot of kid stuff, right? A lot of change with children, a lot of change with your ideas of having fun and what you engage with creatively and what your quirkiness is. But also, where's the practicality in that? Because Taurus is very practical. And if we are doing something that we love creatively, well, then how can we make that work for us in a practical way? As you see Uranus move from Taurus into Gemini, we're going from practical creativity to kind of like airy work, which is really interesting given the concept of a podcast. More than likely what you'll see is that you'll get kind of like a little hint, a little window of what's possible with a podcast. Is your audience opening up? Is an opportunity coming? But the way that I like to think of Gemini is hands. Gemini rules your hands. And if Uranus is there, well, we don't know what is going to happen with our hands because Uranus is kind of like our wild card. So maybe my hands are getting dirty. Maybe my hands are going to get clean. Maybe someone splashes them with paint. We don't know. We could also potentially have issues with electricity and technical issues when it comes to the podcast and with you guys in particular. And in the notes that I wrote for the podcast charts was you guys are just going to have to roll with the punches on technical issues. It's hard baked into the podcast chart that this is just the way it's going to be.
Go figure, Rach.
Well, that has come to fruition already, and I would anticipate that it could continue.
Right, because we're not the kind of people to stay stagnant. So we're going to continue to grow both in technology and, behind the scenes. So I fully anticipate there being more technology issues as we
Which
grow.
I think is so interesting because I don't want to say that bothers you more than it bothers me. But again, I think that we balance each other out too because like there have definitely been times where Krystyn has a trained ear musically and I don't. And that's great. Like that's not a negative thing. But when it comes to like dealing with some of the things that have come up, like especially in the beginning of this podcast, we tried to bite more than we could chew. And we were trying to do videography and recording, which, audio recording. And that was just way too much.
Sure.
That was like, whoop, and we learned very quickly, if we want to sustain this, we can't do this. Like, and that was me. I wanted the video, right? Because that's all the rage now. And everyone has podcasts that have video and blah, 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 whatever. But then when you look at like the content of the podcast, who gives a shit about the video if your content sucks?
Exactly.
So I knew that our content didn't suck. Like I was like, oh, well, we have a listenership out there. And we have the creativity between the two of us. And so that was also part of me letting go of that because that was part of my dream, which is still on the roadmap.
Yeah, you can still build on it.
That's cool.
Right.
And it's possible that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you if I did. But
no, you didn't. No.
It's possible that when we get that preview of Uranus moving into your 6th house, that could absolutely become a thing.
Right.
Where you guys say, okay, we're comfortable enough just in our audio stuff. Now we can bring in the video as well.
Well, and it's funny because we've talked about this and we have a partnership with Penn West for our editing.
Yeah.
The Penn West North students, we know one, and they actually just did a documentary on the steel wine that my husband was in. And so they came over for a staff party Friday night for the holidays. And so him and I were actually talking about what it would look like for, because he would be like the guy to do the video for us and have that be a part of the curriculum there, which is so cool. But, I realistically was talking to him about it and I was like, this is let's shoot for the fall. Let's get through and maybe shoot for the fall to try and add video.
Yep.
So it's one of those things that, again, they're students. So that's not going to be perfect as soon as we're kind of launching into that video. And I think it's important that we continue to communicate about what our dreams are and that we want this. And it's we do have the tendency to bite off more than we can chew. And then we dial it back and we're like, okay, this is what we can manage.
Yeah.
And this is what is feasible for us now. But I do think that there are huge things in store for our podcast. And there's a lot of these kind of, 4 steps forward, 2 steps back kind of situations before we get there.
Yeah. What does the forecast say?
For the podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, it's thumbs up.
Okay.
It's, in my notes, which I gave to you, I kind of go through and delineate everything specifically. But yeah, it's actually remarkable to me how similar your 2 charts are and how similar the charts are between the time you recorded and the time you released. There's very, very little differentiation between charts, especially from recording to release. And the biggest thing that I noticed was the placement of Venus in the podcast chart of the release. It's really good.
Okay.
It's really, really good. And I would love the opportunity to go in depth with you guys on stuff like that. But also there's strategy involved. And I don't know what you're comfortable having out there and what you're not comfortable having out there. But I guess that's what post is for, isn't it?
I think we can edit down.
We can edit it out. I would say, Krystyn and I tend to leave from a very authentic standpoint.
Okay.
And also in the same breath that if we openly share and we're transparent, that gives and lends itself for other people to believe.
Right. It's important.
I literally wrote that.
Okay.
I literally wrote that for both of you.
So interesting.
When I sat down to do all of this, I was going off of the pre-production meeting, and that was it. And I purposely did that because I was like, they seem really cool. I don't want to get in over my head as far as bias is concerned and say, oh, well, they seem really cool and I really want everything to work out for them. I want to do this blind. So I didn't listen to anything before I did the charts.
Yeah.
And just going off of what I got to know about you guys before we sat down for this, but in the production meeting, I was like, they're going to do so well.
Oh,
It's going to be like, it's going to be fucking crazy
Yeah.
to just sit back and watch what you guys can do and where you can go. And having the, I guess, having the self-awareness of needing to communicate, the potential of needing to over-communicate, and just appreciate that I am saying this because I need to say it, and also because I think you need to hear it, is such a bonding thing for the two of you. It's not that, if X, Y, and Z happens, I'm not saying that to be mean to you, but I'm saying it so that you can be aware of it for next time. There is nothing but utmost respect between the two of you for that. And
true.
Yeah. And having that as a partnership, like, that's baseline. You have to have that. You have to be able to trust the person that you're working with to not screw you over.
Yes. Right.
And if you guys can maintain that kind of groundedness, technical issues, setbacks, obstacles, you're going to get through it just fine. And then you will shoot for the stratosphere.
Yeah, no, it's true. And when you're in business and you have a friendship, that can be tricky.
Yeah.
That's a dance.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And there are times where, both of us have been annoyed or pissed off. But that's also part of any solid, I don't want to say this is a marriage, but it's part of having a significant relationship with somebody where it's bigger than you. You know that.
Right.
And the pettiness of it all, again, goes back into, most of the time it goes back into us being into our shadow self and being like, okay, why did that fucking annoy me? Or why did that annoy you? Like, what can I do differently? But I just think that in a lot of ways, I've never been in business with anybody, but I'm grateful that I'm in business with Krystyn because I have other friendships that I value so much, but absolutely not.
For sure.
No fucking way.
Right.
I would immediately be like, no, because we will dissolve. It will not withstand, And so that is very exciting to.
It is really exciting. And I think it's such an important baseline is respect.
Yeah.
And I remember when I met my husband and we were just talking about boundaries and things like that. Really, what came up was expectations.
Yeah.
And I said, I have one expectation, and that is mutual respect. And however it falls outside of that, it falls. And I think that that's like a guiding principle for me personally. So knowing that like is baked in our chart feels really good.
Yeah. It should be extremely reassuring for both of you to just say, yeah, this person is in it for the long haul.
Right.
They do believe that it's here for the greater good.
Yeah.
And that if I'm sacrificing X, Y, and Z, then this person will also be sacrificing A, B, and C on their end.
Right.
And because of that, we are able to maintain that mutual respect and elevate us because we have goals.
Yes.
We have goals here, and we are both committed to those goals. And what's extraordinary to me, like looking at both of your charts, is that you're very upfront people. Both of you are Cap Rising, Cap Moon, which means your moon is in the first house. And whenever your moon is in the first house, you can automatically, you're just whoever you are, wherever you go.
Right.
It's very John Fetterman in the Senate wearing his hoodie.
Yeah.
That's absolutely what it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we are both uniquely that way.
Zero fucks given.
In our own ways. Yeah.
You're very who you are. We can be sitting here at your dining room table and you're exactly who you are. I could take you out into the red carpet and you're going to be the same person.
Yes.
It's very comforting to have that kind of upfront personality. That's the authenticity that we all should strive for, no matter where our placements are. If you can be 100% yourself 100% of the time, then you're already light years ahead of other people. And that in itself can be really, really scary for a lot of folks. Is being 100% yourself 100% of the time, because there's a lot of things within all of us that are like, I don't want to give light to that.
Right.
No, yeah. And I could probably count on not one hand, probably two hands, certain situations where I would be like, okay, we're going to have to work on that. Because I'm still like, to your point, I strive to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I do strive to be 100% me 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. But I'm human.
Yeah. talking about resolutions and all of that, did you pick a word for the year?
No. So I did a lot of writing right at the new moon, right at the end.
Good time to do it.
Yeah. So it
was
again,
like a mega moon.
Yeah, it was not, it just so happened that it was right before the beginning of the new year. I do like having a word, I don't know if it's okay to use a word that you've had in past years, but my word I always go back to, and it's just surrender, because I have so much control that I try to push on other people, push on my children, push my agenda, whatever it is. And I always, always, always go back to, you need to fucking surrender. Stop with the control. Stop with the you asserting yourself all the time and being, because I want to surrender to all the things that are coming and let things unfold the way that they're supposed to unfold. I mean, even the situation with Graham's glasses earlier, and you said that, like, kids, this is how they grow. I was like, that's so fucking true. And even when I was in those moments where I was so mad at him, I was like, okay, breathe. You need to just breathe through this. So yeah, I would say probably surrender. I'm going to go back to. It feels safe. It feels like it's still very valid for where I'm at.
I love how surrender feels safe.
I know. But
because we keep having to come back to it because we're not learning from it. So
yeah, I suck at that. A lot of times I suck at, like, I know what I have to do.
Sure, yeah.
But I am not ready to do it because it's not on my terms.
It's so great to be talking to someone with heavy Capricorn placements that understands that they need to bring that into their life. For me, my word of the year is bold, because I have hella Pisces placements. I'm super passive to the point where I'm just kind of like, whatever. I don't care. I don't care. Oh, I care.
Yeah.
Oh, I care a lot, it turns out.
Those Pisces emotions care.
Yeah. And the thing is that, I said earlier that I have some controversial opinions about Pisces. And one of them is that Pisces is actually the most mature sign in the entire zodiac, because by the time you get from Aries to Pisces, you've gone through it all. You've done it all. There's you're just a decrepit little old lady sitting in a chair with her little blanket and maybe, a video game to keep her entertained. Yeah. She does not give a shit. She's not here for your bullshit. She doesn't want to talk about it. If you don't have your shit together by now, Pisces doesn't care. Pisces will make fun of you.
Well, and there's certain schools of thought where you go through a certain number of reincarnations to actually go through each zodiac sign, and the culmination is the Pisces.
Yeah.
So there are definitely people out there that follow that.
And I am the person that has been saying from the jump, I'm not going back. You can't make me come back here. I'm done. I got 3 planets in Pisces. Forget it. So I'm doing everything I can. Thank you. Yeah, me too. Because I'm I'm ready to ascend. Because I'm tired, man.
Yeah.
This is exhausting out here.
Krystyn and I have talked a lot about being tired.
Oh my God. And it's like, the older you get too.
How much work we're putting in. But we talk a lot about, planting that seed and letting it germinate and letting it grow underneath in the darkness and what that looks like and feels like. And that's I will never tire of that metaphor. And even when you come light side, you still got to fucking grow.
Yeah.
You still got to put in the work. So I think 2025 is going to feel different when it comes to work and the seeds that we are sowing. And I think our roots are starting to grow out instead of, they're still going to grow down, but we've planted the fucking seed.
All right. I didn't necessarily have one word this year, but I've had a series of feelings that have really been coming to surface to feel like they're encompassing everything that is this year. And a big one of those is flow, right? And that, looking at things and they're not good or bad. They're not black or white. Like everything is flowing in and out of us. And just kind of allowing myself to be a part of that stardust.
Yeah.
Right? And the other part of that is keeping promises to myself.
Yes.
And that has been something that it started with a commitment to honor myself. and then has evolved now to understanding that each day is about keeping promises to myself.
Yay, I know. Yeah.
I love that.
It's been like quite the journey for me though to get here.
Yeah.
And to feel like this. My daughter actually did this on her own and brought it to me. She did a word for the year.
Yeah.
And her word was commit.
Yeah. Get a girl.
I know. And then
Evie
she wrote
is-
like a whole thing on it.
Yeah, she is. I feel like she is an old soul in a young body. Like, again, Emmeline and Evie are best friends, but they are different creatures, you know? And I love that.
Evie's she's a explorer, Saggy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, commit for a Sag is,
Learn.
that's a good try.
Right.
Yeah. It just depends, I guess, on what we're committing to.
Right.
But I love surrender and also flow for this year because you'll need it. You'll absolutely need it.
Right.
And with everything that is happening, I mean, just going back to Pluto and Aquarius right now is facing an opposition with Mars retrograde as it backs into Cancer. It just backed into Cancer yesterday, so that is kind of like held off for a little bit, but it's coming back for a third swing. So anything that has been kind of feeling shaky, yesterday was January 6th. So if you had any inclination of something going on yesterday, it's going to come back. It'll boomerang back and you'll revisit it again within a couple weeks.
Yeah, I feel like Mars for me in my placement has a lot to do with like the first half of my year.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, let's talk about Mars retrograde because Mars retrograde is actually a really big deal.
And I don't want to say, again, it's not like a negative or a positive. It's like, it is, that's the other thing that I think there, when you look at surrender, it's accepting. Like, we can't change where the planets are going. So there is no other option but to accept what is, right? It's not like we can be like, you know what? Let's just put that on pause for a hot minute. It's not going to happen. Like, you can't ignore it. And so I think that's the interesting thing too. When you get these forecasts, it can seem ominous, but it's also like, or is this exciting? It's about your perspective on how you choose to approach it. So I'm like, let's fucking go. I'm not opposed to shit's still going to happen. People are still going to die. Babies are going to be born. I'm going to lose things. Somebody else,
But to go back to what you're saying though, right? With even going back to Graham's glasses, it's like, why do we even need to go there?
Right.
Right. Why do we even need to be in that space where we allow the stuff, whether it's the astrological transits, the forecasts, or the day-to-day stuff, why do we have to allow it to affect us?
totally.
And for me as an astrologer, it's if you get really serious about astrology, there comes a time where you need to kind of have a self-talk and decide some things about what you're believing and what you're not believing. I told both of you during the production meeting that year has been really hard for me, really, really hard. And I'm pretty sure that if I did not have astrology as my guide to say, okay, yes, this is something that I can release, this is something I can let go, I don't think I would have made it through this year. I think that if I didn't have astrology saying, it's going to be fine, you need to relax.
Yep.
Just get to November. Once November comes around, you're going to be great.
Yep.
And so I was able to lay down, take a time out, cry, scream, and be very, very selfish, very selfish. And then I was able to come out of it. And that for me is really what is the most important thing about this particular practice. If you have problems with control, become an astrologer because you will see that it's going to be okay. You just need to kind of get there. You just have to get to November 19th. You just have to get till this time next year. And once that happens, you're golden. You have something to celebrate because not only were you able to hunker down and batten down the hatches and get through whatever the universe was throwing at you, you now have the opportunity to reflect on that and say, wow, look how strong I am. And then go celebrate on vacation or whatever is coming up next for you. There's always an ebb and flow. There's always something that is going to be awful, but there's always something that's going to be awesome right along with it. And you have to be able to take the good with the bad. If you don't take the good with the bad, then you don't know what good or bad is.
No, you're stuck.
Yeah. It's not even, in my opinion.
Well, and it's appreciation.
Yeah, it's gratitude. It's saying that I am grateful for what I have. Do I still have goals? Yeah, absolutely. But I'm not going to sacrifice those goals just because I'm grateful for what I have. And I'm not going to not be grateful for what I have because I have goals. There's two sides to every coin. And if you're able to, in my opinion, locate that part of you, that sweet spot, like a pivot on or an axis, then you're going to do great because you'll be able to say, on this one hand, this was terrible, but there's a silver lining to it. And it's that I learned. If you can find the lesson, you are never going to fail. You will never fail as long as you're learning something.
No, for sure.
I 100% agree with that. That's definitely a part of like our mantra as a family.
Yeah.
Is like just learn the lesson and take an action. I think that we tend to be prone, well, I've tended to be prone to like that paralysis, that perfectionist paralysis in the past. And my husband is more tend to procrastinate. And so I'm always pushing us forward, right? And he's kind of always pulling us back. And so what we realize is it's an action that cures the fear. Even if the action is no action at that time, it's a purposeful decision to enter into what's happening in our life and be present and mindful to cure that, so to speak, right? To keep us from just being stagnant and just freezing in time, which can be really easy for people to do, especially if they see a forecast that looks ominous or they hear the words Mercury retrograde or anything retrograde, right? It's just fear. It's like, oh, I can't do anything now.
But who's imposing that?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And for someone like me who is hardcore into astrology, you're going to see very quickly that some people actually do much better during a Mercury retrograde. Some people are actually more inclined to be more active during a Mars retrograde. It just depends on your particular chart. The great thing about astrology is that it is all about me, right? Let's talk about your chart. Your chart is all about you. And the problem comes in is that people hear that and they think, well, everything applies blanket across everything. And that's not true. There's different factors that can either bonify a chart, make it better, or maltreat a chart and make it worse. And if you are not aware of what's going on where, you can't just say, oh, well, all Capricorns are money-hungry bastards. I mean, sure, we are. But also, there is a massive thing with Capricorn when it comes to taking care and wanting to provide and wanting to be practical and stable and secure. So, yeah, Capricorn can absolutely be workaholic, but you know what? It's with a purpose. Capricorn is actually, in my opinion, one of the most misunderstood signs. Capricorn and Pisces are actually very misunderstood in pop astrology.
Can you be healthy and unhealthy in a sign?
For sure. You can absolutely have, going back to Capricorn, I really want to avoid my family, so I'm going to go to work and I'm going to stay at work and maybe I'll come home later, but I have to work late because there's this thing that I'm trying to avoid. Am I providing? Sure. But what is your intention?
Right.
You always have to check in with your intention. If you are not following your actual values, morals, then you're not going to get anywhere.
That's true too.
So going back to Mars, which is kind of where we started here.
Oh my God, Krystyn is... She was not prepared for two ADHD people.
No, I'm here. Oh no, my husband has ADHD. Okay. I got a big toolbox, ladies. It's
reel us back in. Reel us back in.
No, but I think that what you're saying is really important in incorporating those values that guide us into what's coming.
Yeah.
Is super important. And if you haven't done that and you're listening, get clear with yourself about what your guiding principles are in life. Rachel and I actually did an exercise a few months ago where we were working on our principles as podcast hosts, as producers. And
it's kind of like our pillars for, what is our mission statement and why are we doing what we're doing?
Right. And I have felt very strongly since the very beginning that we needed to have our values and our guiding principles outlined before we had any offers come our way, so that we were making choices from a place of guiding principle and not from a monetary standpoint.
Yeah, and that we could go back and reflect on and be like, okay, let's analyze this. Let's get into the details.
We might love a good dildo, but we don't necessarily need to be sponsored by a dildo company.
That's right.
Maybe.
Unless they're magical. I mean, if it's part
a
of
mystical dildo, you bring that shit on.
That's good. Let's go.
Or if you can drink white wine out of it. I mean,
maybe we just need to have merch that's like dildos for every zodiac sign.
That's right.
Mystic Mama dildos.
I love that. All-purpose dildos.
There you go.
Multi-purpose dildos. Dildo during the night.
I was going to say compostable,
wine
but that does not work.
No.
You do not want to compostable.
Although, that would be really good for sales because they're going to have to buy another one.
It really would. Yeah. Yeah.
And the environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, do you think that there's just like a dildo landfill somewhere?
A one-time use dildo? Oh, can you imagine finding a dildo? That'd be like the worst.
What do you mean finding? Like on the street?
Yeah, like if you were in the junkyard.
Why are we in the junkyard?
Wait,
I don't know. I always like to thrift.
I don't think that people.
That's not thrifting. That's going through trash.
Thrifted dildo.
Yeah, landfills and junkyards are two very
different stores.
It's like, hey, I need a mirror for my car. Oh, whoops! There's a dildo here. How weird.
So weird. I was thinking landfill. Okay, not junkyard.
It's still the same thing, though. Like, you're still going through someone's trash.
We're just now sponsored by a junkyard.
Yay!
Fuck.
I don't think those
Mars
guys.
retrograde. No.
Let's go back. Oh, my God. Okay.
So, Mars retrograde started on December 6th, and it goes all the way through February 23rd. Things to know about this particular retrograde. It's being affected by Leo and Cancer. So it started in Leo. It just backed into Cancer yesterday, January 6th. And then it will station direct and go back into Cancer in a little bit. Things that we really want to pay attention to for this particular transit are going to be controlling impulses, leadership, wanting to grab hold of leadership and not let go. Sometimes we are going to have to take a look at our older actions, things that we did before, and maybe judge those a little harshly so that we can then turn around and fix it after Mars stations direct and goes back into Leo. We want to be really careful about looking for validation. Everything that we need is within ourselves. We can validate everything that we need within ourselves. We do not need to outsource our kudos.
Outsource our kudos. I like it. Also, don't like it. I don't need that.
No.
Yeah.
I'm
tracking.
What you think of something is good enough. Doesn't matter sorry, Krystyn, but it doesn't matter what Krystyn thinks. It matters what you think.
No, yeah. Right. I get that.
You have a good opinion about stuff.
I'm going to make stickers.
Okay.
Don't outsource your kudos.
That's right.
Learning to release emotional control in relationships is going to be a really big thing here too. So
That's a big sigh, right?
Yeah. What did I say earlier was letting other people fail is a love language. And if you are able to just say, oh, that is not me, but you're my kid and I'm going to be here to mother you through this mistake, that's what you need to do. That's everything that you need to do right there, because when they're little, they can make mistakes and we can nurture them through it. When they're big and they're making mistakes, they're going to make some real big mistakes. So let them make mistakes now. Let them learn now. And then hopefully they're not going to repeat that when they're 20 or 30 years old.
I think that's so important. And then the understanding that they are not us or a projection of us.
Correct.
And allowing them to make mistakes because they're just themselves on their own journey with their own lessons to learn.
100%.
Blind Graham.
So Something else I wrote down was that Mars's retrograde will demand introspection into your habits around fighting, self-expression, and emotional care, pushing you to embrace discomfort and the possibility of failure in order to learn and evolve.
Discomfort is not a threat.
It's not.
I will say it 1,000 times over.
I actually just think you need to get a tattoo at this point.
If you are comfortable, you are not learning.
Right.
Is there a balance there, though? I mean, there are times where, like, I like to just be comfortable.
Well, I mean, you go to bed. You can go take a nap and be comfortable on your pillow.
Yes.
Yeah, but learning and ascension is not like a linear growth pattern.
Right.
So there are going to be times when we're just kind of resting, and there's going to be other times where the universe is kicking our ass. And that's
It's an ebb and
normal
flow.
because it's not supposed to just be one straight trajectory from here to there.
Yeah. Well, and I think you know where I think I was going with that is like I create my comfortability. So there are days when, like, you know, I know that I need to be in a comfortable place. So I'm going to just hang here, make food.
I feel like
chill.
we end up on opposite spectrums of this because I force myself into discomfort because that's how, in my mind, I've related that I know I'm learning and I know I'm growing is to actually force myself into discomfort. So I feel like we fall very differently on this.
I think that, you know, talking about the idea of balance in something like this is really interesting because there is an ebb and flow. There is a time where we are going to be full speed ahead and having to change stuff. And there's going to be times where we have to change stuff, but we don't really want to make eye contact with the stuff we need to change. So we're just going to put that away and go make food. I personally sort of lean more towards Krystyn side of it, where I say, I am actively trying to ignore this. Why? What is it about this particular thing that is making me so uncomfortable that I decided that I don't want to deal with it? And once I started doing that and I started forcing myself into conflict, like internal conflict, well, now I'm here on a podcast talking about stuff that I love when I never thought that I'd be doing that.
Okay, so let me ask you a question since we kind of have similar veins on this. Do you feel like you decided who you didn't want to be before you decided who you wanted to be?
Yes.
Because I very much feel like that. And I feel like that as a younger person, that guided a lot of my decision making to make myself feel uncomfortable so that I wouldn't be A, B, C, D, and E.
Correct. Yeah.
And then I had to go through an evolution where I had to learn how to trust myself and learn that I was a good person and I was making the choices that I was making because that was who I was and not in spite of being who I didn't want to be.
Absolutely. And it goes back to defining your values and your morals.
Right.
If you are able to decipher within yourself, or not decipher, but if you're able to discern within yourself, this is my value of right. This has always been what I consider to be the right thing. If I am presented a choice that allows me to choose between doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing, why would I consciously do the wrong thing if I know that my moral and value dictates that it should be something that I do?
Well, and I will say for myself and my own path right now, part of what I've been journaling about in the beginning of this year, end of last year, was actually doing away with the good versus bad that you're talking about in that dichotomy and moving more into that flow of it's all the same.
Yes.
It's all the same. We're all the same.
Yeah.
The good is the same as the bad. And it's just all lessons that we have to learn and move through.
I completely agree with that because at the end of the day, there are no wrong choices. There are just choices. It's our lizard brains that put a judgment on stuff. In my opinion, judgment goes hand in hand with surrender. If you're able to remove your judgment of a situation, and we need to have good judgment, but if you're able to remove your judgment from a situation and say, this is what it is. It's gray, it's blah, it's what, no matter what this is. It's my kid going to this school or that school. It's me deciding to hang out with this person or that person. There's no wrong answer. The reason we put judgment on stuff is because we get really concerned about ego. We get really, really worked up about, well, how is this going to look? If I decide to hang out with Rachel today, is Krystyn going to have a problem with that? Krystyn will probably be there, but but if I decide,
can't get rid of that bitch.
I know, she's always showing up. But if I decide to hang out with Krystyn today, is that going to upset Rachel? Well, you know what? Maybe I just text both of them and say, hey, by the way, I'm doing this today. Do you want to come hang out with me? If you remove yourself and your ego from everything that you do, things start becoming a lot easier because you have that moral and those values to fall back on. And then, well, my decision's already made for me. If my kid gets into one school, that's great. But if he doesn't, he can go to the other school and then we can try again next year. It's not that big of a deal. Some people will say, no, my ego says that it is a big deal because he's supposed to be at that school because that's the better school. Says who? He's still learning to read and write. What difference does it make? He's still making friends. The education will come, especially when he's older. Right now, he just needs to learn how to work with people and I guess math. Stupid.
He'll learn how to math.
He's better at math than I am.
And we were talking the other day about, like in our home, Charlie and I were talking about, for both of us, how pivotal the years of like 11 to 18 were.
For sure, yeah.
In who we became. And we've spent so much time worrying about the first 11, 12 years. And I'm like, okay, it's these next 8 years that really like she's going to remember the most. And these are the years where I need to let go and cede that control and allow her to make those mistakes and be who she's going to be and be a lighthouse rather than a cage for her.
Exactly. I love the metaphor of the lighthouse because that's really what it is. It's a guide. You want to make sure that your kids are always feeling safe enough to come home because if they're not, then we as parents are doing something wrong and there is something that needs to be rectified within that relationship because my kid isn't going to want to tell me everything. My kid is absolutely going to lie to me. I don't want him to, but that's just the reality of the situation. People lie for a variety of reasons. And if we are not allowing our kids to be the people that they are, then they are going to end up suppressing their identity. They're going to try to fit into the box that we are putting them in.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a disaster for them later.
So to kind of like talk about, we want to harness the energy. We want to harness the stars, right?
Sure.
And with Mars being retrograde and having to be cautious of having that control, what are practical tips that we can actually use in our everyday to harness that power rather than putting those hands up and pushing it away and not wanting to deal with it because it's hard?
Yeah. There's a couple different things. And the first one that I would say is shut up. Just shut up. Let your kid talk. Let your husband talk. You don't know everything. Whether it's your sister, your mom, your auntie, your coworker, whoever it is, just shut up and listen to them. And if you think that they're wrong, at least let them talk. And then you can engage in a conversation with them and keep calm while you're doing it. This entire situation with Cancer and Leo really gives a lot of hot-headedness, and we want to be able to just kind of relax from that. Be self-aware enough to say, I am getting really angry. No matter what I'm being angry about, I am angry and I need to take a time out. Remove yourself from the situation, go calm down, and then, or at least get the emotion out of you somehow, and then approach it with a more logical and grounded view. If you are too emotional about anything, you're not going to be able to make any headway in a conflict. And we're all about conflict right now. So if we're making emotional decisions, it's not going to result in anything that anyone wants. So just chill out. And then I also highly recommend, don't be a show off. Leo is very much, the lion. It's the king, wants to be in charge of everything and loves compliments and kudos.
That's fucking kudos. They're coming back to haunt us.
Give yourself kudos. Show off for yourself if you want, but keep it behind closed doors right now because it's not going to resonate well with other people.
Such good advice.
Oh, okay.
Another one I recommend is, along with shut up, is don't smother. Let people make their own choices. It doesn't matter if you've been in the exact same situation before. It doesn't matter if you know that something is happening that this person doesn't know about. Let them fail and then be there for them to pick them back up. Do not say, I told you so. You can offer your opinion if it's asked for, but just be there for, that's the definition, in my opinion, of a good friend. I know you're going to make a mistake. I know you're screwing this up. Oh, I love you so much. Go ahead. Just go ahead. I'll be here for you when you're done.
I've been doing that with Jeff, with his family.
What do you mean?
I've been smothering him. Just with everything that's been going on.
I mean, that's understandable though. And I think that can be a defense mechanism too. Like when we don't know, or things are hard or emotional or scary.
Yeah. Well, we could use this as a real life example. I mean, Jeff knows that I share everything, but Jeff's dad had open heart surgery in December. His parents have a very interesting relationship. They're divorced, but they're very much involved with each other. And then his brother is also dying from pancreatic cancer.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I know. It's
a lot.
It's a lot. And so his brother's 11 years older than he is. And they're close, but they're not close. They're not friends, you know what I mean? But they're brothers. But he lives in Michigan, and, I'm we have to go up and see George. And Jeff's dad's in the hospital, in and out of the hospital, in and out of the hospital. And I'm what I'm trying to communicate with his sister. And I got this morning, he was sitting where you are, and I was sitting here, and I was listen, do we take the kids? Do we not take the kids to Michigan? And I'm trying to that smothering word kept coming in. Even though I was coming from a place of love, and I'm we have to do this, and we have to do this. And I'm but ultimately, this is his family, and these are his relationships. And I need to just be supportive of his directive instead of pushing.
Right. And because he's going to have, this is his experience to live. Not that you're not living your own experience along with him, but.
No, I'm not. I would not know his brother if it wasn't for Jeff. So
right, but your experience in this is how you're showing up for him
yeah,
and supporting him.
Exactly.
Right?
And instead of pushing him to do what I would do if this was my brother or this was my father, that's why I'm oh my God.
Maybe a reframing too, because this is honestly an exercise in trusting your partner that he is going to handle this in the best way that he needs to handle this, and trusting in him. I think it could be a really beautiful place of growth for you guys, as hard as it is.
Yeah.
You were talking earlier about the transits being ominous. And something that came to my mind when you said that is that we can absolutely turn ominous into opportunity if we allow it. If we allow ourselves to see where we can challenge ourselves, then it turns it into a completely different thing. We're not going to be making this specific situation about ourselves, but we are still part of it. Like Krystyn was saying, we're still in it. And if we're in it, well, we may as well be in it to win it. So how can I win in this situation? By stepping back and letting someone else lead. And listening to them and allowing them to be vulnerable so that we can in turn share that vulnerability with them.
Yeah. Yeah, because he holds everything close to the chest when it comes to that stuff.
I'm trying to go back and remember when we kind of started talking about this. Did you say something about Mars placement in Rachel's chart? Well,
with being specific about Rachel's chart is actually really interesting to me. And with this particular placement, I would imagine that Rachel would have kind of a difficult relationship with things like motivation and anger. Those things might not always feel comfortable or defined. If there's times where we are feeling particularly confused, anger might result from that, and then we might not be able to deal with either one of those things. I think in this particular scenario, with Mars retrograde hitting your 8th house and your 7th house, it's not that it's necessarily going to be extra problematic for you. In fact, I would imagine that this would be a real, like, you're going to feel the pressure, but also the retrograde is going to be very supportive of severing ties with things so that you can turn around and elevate yourself. Your eighth house is always where the eighth house is where the sausage is made. It's the room where it happens if you're Hamilton fans.
Yes.
And it's a really exciting place that no one ever gets to go to. We are always just kind of like dipping back there to the stock room and then coming back up to be like, hey guys, look what I found back there.
Yeah.
That's where this retrograde started for you. And because you do have a day chart, your Mars is going to be a little bit rougher. It's going to be a little bit more harsh because it's the malefic contrary to sect is the technical term. And in a situation like that, you might have to dip into the back room to smash some stuff because now our back room is a smash, what is it called when?
I think it's called a smash room.
Yeah, smash room, like a break room.
Yeah, break room.
Oh my God, I thought you were talking about a bedroom. I was like, what the
No.
Everybody, welcome to Rachel's smash room.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, you can do that back there too. You can get angry and go fuck if you want.
Yeah, I've never been one to have angry sex.
But you'll slip back there, break some shit, and then go back and take a look at some of your relationships and how you're smothering, how you're nurturing, because you can do both. You can nurture and smother at the same time. But then you're going to reevaluate it so that moving forward, things are going to look a little different. Because as soon as that Mars retrograde stations direct and heads back into Leo, you're going to want to go sweep up things that you broke and either repair it or throw it out so that you don't have to do it anymore.
What does that timeline look like from a calendar year?
April 18th. Mars will station direct on April 18th. So around April 18th, everything that you broke, you will be in the process of sweeping up, and then you can decide what you want to do with it. If you want to glue it back together and make, there's a Chinese art of healing plates with gold.
Kusagi?
Yeah.
Is it Kusagi or?
Oh,
it sounds right.
Yeah, we've talked about it. Yeah.
We've talked about that.
You could do that and turn it into this beautiful thing.
Okay.
Or you can say, this is rubbish, it's for the bin, and throw it out.
Yes. Okay.
That is the difference between fate and destiny.
Yes.
It's going to happen.
Yep.
You may as well lean into it. If we're not leaning into it, we're just letting it happen. We're being too passive.
Right.
We have to be the drivers of our own little life car.
Yes.
As we're going down this highway.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it's good to be reminded of that. Get back in the driver's seat.